Hello and welcome to the first edition of Read Along with the BMI. Charles Dickens was one of the people who helped create the BMI and raised a lot of money for us in the Christmas of 1853, the year before we were opened. He did this by reading his Christmas stories in the town hall. Now everybody knows about the fact that he read A Christmas Carol, and A Christmas Carol has really been done to death, but if it hasn't got Muppets in it, I'm not interested. I'm more interested in the other Christmas stories that he wrote. If you want to hear more about, or read more about Christmas and Charles Dickens and his involvement with the BMI, check out the blog on the BMI website. I'm going to read you a section from the Chimes, which was one of the Christmas stories that he read just after Christmas in 1853. He wrote it in 1844 when on holiday in Italy, having heard the bells of the local cathedral and then transposing those chimes to London, as all true artists do. So this is a section from the middle of the Chimes. Be careful because it's very scary. There's a man called Totty who has heard the bells going a bit bananas in the local church. So he's going to check it out. What his astonishment when, coming bareheaded to the church and putting his hand unto this dark nook, with a certain misgiving that it might be unexpectedly seized and a shivering propensity to draw it back again, he found that the door, which opened outwards, actually stood ajar. He stood on the first surprise of going back, or of getting a light, or a companion, but his courage aided him immediately, and he determined to ascend alone. "What have I to fear?" said Trotty. "It's a church. Beside, the readers might be there and have forgotten to shut the door." So he went in, feeling his way as he went like a blind man, for it was very dark and very quiet, for the chimes were silent. The dust from the street had blown into the recess, and lying there heaped up made it so soft and velvet-like to the foot that there was something startling even in that. The narrow stair was so close to the door too that he stumbled at the very first, and shutting the door upon himself by striking it with his foot and causing it to rebound back heavily, he couldn't open it again. This was another reason, however, for going on. Trotty groped his way and went on, up and up and up, and round and round, and up, 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 higher, higher, higher up. It was a disagreeable staircase for that groping work, so long and narrow that his groping hand was always touching something, and it often felt so like a man or ghostly figure standing up erect and making room for him to pass without discovery, that he would rub the smooth wall upwards searching for its face, and downwards searching for its feet, while a chill tingling crept all over him. Twice or thrice a door or niche broke the monotonous surface, and then it seemed a gap as wide as the whole church, and he fell on the brink of an abyss, and going to tumble headlong down until he found the wall up. Still up, 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 and round, up, 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 higher, higher, higher up. At length the dull and stifling atmosphere began to freshen, presently to feel quite windy. Presently it blew so strong that he could hardly keep his legs, but he got to an arched window in the tower, breast high, and holding tight looked down upon the housetops, on the smoking chimneys, on the burr and blotch of lights, towards the place where Meg was wondering where he was and calling to him perhaps, all kneading up together in a leaven of mist and darkness. This was the belfry where the ringers came. He had caught hold of one of the frayed ropes, which hung down through apertures in the oaken roof. At first he started thinking it was hair, then trembled at the very thought of waking the deep bell. The bells themselves were higher. Higher, Trotty, in his fascination, or in working out the spell upon him, groped his way. By ladders now and toilsomely, for it was steep, and not too certain holding for the feet. Up, up, and climb and clamber, up, 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 higher, higher, higher up, until ascending through the floor and pausing with his head just raised above its beams, he came across the bells. It was barely possible to make out their great shapes in the gloom, but there they were, shadowy and dark and dumb. A heavy sense of dread and loneliness fell instantly upon him as he climbed into this airy nest of stone and metal. His head went round and round. He listened, and then he raised a wild "Hello! Hello! Hello! Hello!" was mournfully protracted by the echoes. Giddy, confused, and out of breath, and frightened, Toby looked about him vacantly and sunk down in a swoon. Black are the brooding clouds and troubled the deep waters when the sea of thought, first heaving from a calm, gives up its dead. Monsters uncouth and wild arise in premature, imperfect resurrection. The several parts and shapes of different things are joined and mixed by chance, and when and how and by what wonderful degrees each separates from each, and every sense and object of the mind resumes its usual form and lives again, no man, though every man is every day the casket of this type of the great mystery, can tell. So, when and how the darkness of the night-black steeple changed to a shining light, when and how the solitary tower was peopled with a myriad figures, when and how the whispered haunt and humped him breathed monotonously through his sleep or swoon, became a voice exclaiming in the waking ears of Totty, "Break his slumbers!" When and how he ceased to have a sluggish and confused idea that such things were companioning a host of others that were not, there are no dates or means to tell. But, awake and standing on his feet, upon the boards where he had lately lain, he saw this goblin sight. He saw the tower, whither his charmed footsteps had brought him, swarming with dwarf phantoms, spirits, elfin creatures of the bells. He saw them leaping, flying, dropping, pouring from the bells without a pause. He saw them round him on the ground, above him in the air, clambering from him by the ropes below, looking down upon him from the massive iron-girded beams, peeping in upon him through the chinks and loopholes in the walls, spreading away and away from him in enlarging circles as the water ripples gave place to a huge stone that suddenly comes plashing in upon them. He saw them of all aspects and all shapes. He saw them ugly, handsome, crippled, exquisitely formed. He saw them young, he saw them old, he saw them kind, he saw them cruel, he saw them merry, he saw them grim. He saw them dance, he heard them sing, he heard them tear their hair and heard them howl. He saw the air thick with them. He saw them come and go incessantly. He saw them riding downward, soaring upward, sailing off afar, perching near at hand, all restless and all violently active. Stone and brick and slate and tile became transparent to him as to them. He saw them in the houses, busy at the sleepers' beds. He saw them soothing people in their dreams. He saw them beating them with knotted whips. He saw them yelling in their ears. He saw them playing softest music on their pillows. He heard them cheering some with the songs of birds and the perfume of flowers. He saw them flashing awful faces on the troubled rest of others from enchanted mirrors which they carried in their hands. He saw these creatures not only among sleeping men, but waking also, active in pursuits irreconcilable with one another, and possessing or assuming natures the most opposite. He saw one buckling on innumerable wings to increase his speed, another loading himself with chains and weights to retard his. He saw some putting the hands of clocks forward, some putting the hands of clocks backward, some endeavouring to stop the clock entirely. He saw them representing here a marriage ceremony, there a funeral, in this chamber an election, and in that a ball. Everywhere restless and untiring motion. Bewildered by the host of shifting and extraordinary figures, as well as by the uproar of the bells, which all this time were ringing, Trotty clung to a wooden pillar for support, and turned his white face here and there in mute and stunned astonishment. As he gazed, the chimes stopped. Instantaneous change, the whole swarm fainted, their forms collapsed, their speed deserted them, they sought to fly, but in the act of falling died and melted into air. No fresh supply succeeded them. One straggler leapt down pretty briskly from the surface of the great bell and alighted on his feet, but he was dead and gone before he could turn around. Some few of the late company who had gambolled in the tower remained there, spinning over and over a little longer, but these became at every turn more faint and few and feeble, and soon went the way of the rest. The last of all was one small hunchback, who had got into an echoing corner where he twirled and floated by himself a long time, showing such perseverance that at last he dwindled to a leg and even to a foot before he finally retired, but he vanished in the end, and then the tower was silent. Then, and not before, did Trotty see in every bell a bearded figure of the bulk and stature of the bell, incomprehensibly a figure and the bell itself, gigantic, grave, and darkly watchful of him as he stood rooted to the ground. Mysterious and awful figures, resting on nothing, poised in the air, the night air of the tower, with their draped and hooded heads merged in the dim roof, motionless and shadowy and dark, although he saw them each by some light belonging to themselves. None else was there, each with his muffled hand upon its goblin mouth. And to know what happens, you'll have to read The Chimes by Charles Dickens.